purpose to life isn't being never falling, it's getting up. Like if you can get up, you're a warrior. That's what that adds the most light into the world. Fine.
Understand that a lot of your worldview could be upended.
It's tough not to want to help even when you're not the most qualified in something.
What freed you from the last place is now the prison of the new place.
I was thinking recently that compassion is truth. Why is compassion truth? Because compassion takes into full account everything you're going through.
Everyone around me is living with measuring ourselves by results. And now I'm going to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at the end of the day and say, did I give it my all? Welcome to the In Search of More podcast. I am your host, Eli Nash. Join me weekly on my quest for more from myself and more from this world. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Rabbi Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Sitting here with Rabbi Daniel Bortz from San Diego, also known as the Millennial Rabbi. So speak to me a little bit about what you do day to day.
What do I do day to day? So thank you for having me. This is awesome. I'm in Miami, partly because of what I do day to day. I currently live in Lower Manhattan area and have an organization called Soul X, which stands for Soul Experience. The X is shaped like an olive because we want to have soulful experiences infused through a Jewish lens. And I host events, classes. We do a big dinner here in Miami once a month for Shabbat, where we have over 100 young professionals.
Where do you do that?
Where?
Yeah.
This last two has been in Bay Harbor, in near Surfside, Ball Harbor area.
Cool.
Lovely family that hosts it. And just try to create powerful Jewish experiences that are social, fun, but where we can go deeper and connect with each other on a deeper level and to ourselves on a deeper level.
Gotcha. And who's coming out to these events? Is it religious people? Is it
non-religious, unaffiliated, and somewhat affiliated 20s and 30s and early 40s?
Gotcha. We should do one here.
I'd love that.
Yeah,
be great.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful location.
Yeah, people would.
We got to use the cold plunge has to be part of the experience.
We'll make it part of the experience. So, so you're in Manhattan, you do that as well, and then once a month you come.
Mainly in Manhattan, mainly in New York. It started in San Diego. So in 2018, I was praying in my backyard, which I love to do, praying in nature, connecting through nature, and it just like occurred to me like an epiphany. I said, if I'm a rabbi and I'm not enjoying synagogue, and I know everything that there is about the prayer service and all the details, then friends my age and people my age, there's no way that they're finding, maybe some do, but they're not finding a lot of meaning in the traditional structures. So I said, I have to meet people where they're at. That means...
And meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think you can mainly share best what you're passionate about, what you enjoy. So I started, I did in the backyard in San Diego, I did a sound healing experience on Friday afternoon before Shabbat started with crystal sound bowls. I said, what are we trying to do here? The prayers are important, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to tap into the transition from the outward focused hustle of the week into the beingness of just being present and feeling into what Shabbat is, this day of rest. So how can I help people have that experience if they don't know the traditional ritual? And that's what I kind of focus on. And from then forward, I've always focused on...
So where did the Judaism get infused in that experience?
So for that
we can go to many places for ritual.
Right,
sound.
right, 100%. It's evolved since then. For that one, I talked a little bit about the idea of how these concepts can be found in Judaism. So let's say breath. So we know that the last line of King David's Psalms says, Kol haneshama tahallel hallelujah. For every soul praise God. But the word neshama comes from neshima as well, which God breathed a soul into man. So breath is very much connected to your soul connection to God. And then we did a kind of a mindful experience about how focusing about how every breath we have is like a gift from Hashem. And just the goal of what we're trying to do in Judaism is to connect ourselves to the divine, our divine source, and finding different ways of explaining that connection. And then we did a kiddush, we did a candle lighting, we did ritual within traditional Torah values, but we did not do a full service. And since then, I've found a variety of ways of incorporating more through the lens of Jewish ritual.
So an event in Miami today will look like what?
So what we did this past Friday is we sat outside. We had a beautiful setup. We have to have good gashmias, good physicality, good materiality, beautiful crowd, great food and drink, everything. And then I led a meditation outdoors about the week we're in. So we now found ourselves in the Sfirat HaOmer, where we count 7 of our soul traits. And the week we had just started was the week of Tiferet. Tiferet is harmony and beauty and compassion and truth, which is we could get into. Like, I think I was thinking recently that compassion is truth. Why is compassion truth? Because compassion takes into full account everything you're going through. Having compassion is not just like, I'm going to let you go for what you did wrong. Compassion is, I see what's wrong with myself or with others, but I also see the challenges involved. I also see that there's two
putting
forces.
in a grander context.
100%. So there was that, but the idea of harmony and balance is what the meditation was about. And we kind of imagined how the waves of the ocean go in and out, your heartbeat goes in and out, your breath goes in and out, how the angels in Ezekiel's vision run to God in love, but they pull back in awe. Ratzo Vishuv, and this kind of theme of Tiferet in our lives. So we're focusing on the Omer, we're focusing on welcoming in Shabbat, and the girls did a candle lighting inside, separate, and we had the guys with the meditation, and then we joined in together. Some who wanted to pray the service did. And then we had just a beautiful Shabbat dinner full of discussion. Of course, Kiddush and Hamotzi. I was actually amazed that everybody wanted to wash their hands, and we talked about the meaning of the challah. So trying to make it an inspiring Jewish experience.
An experiential.
Yes,
Shabbos.
That's the word.
Right. I like the idea that it's connecting the physicality as well.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes we've moved away from that in Judaism.
It's interesting that, I see what you're saying, because in a way I would think at the core of what makes Judaism unique, as opposed to, let's say, Eastern religion, is the physicality, but in an elevated way. Maybe
That's
not
what I mean.
Yeah. Because we want to infuse spirituality into
you said
physicality.
it was
Quality.
Right. Good food, good wine.
You know the Hasidic parable of the prince, always a prince and a king. So the king's son, the prince, wants to prove himself. So he goes off to a faraway land, and I feel like this coming out here from downtown Brickell, Miami to here, is going off into the land. And he goes off, and he finally, after 6 months, he gets a letter from the king. And he's so excited. He got a letter from his father. He's really excited. But he's like in the middle of the town square. He's like, if I start just jumping for joy, people will think, or just start celebrating, they think I'm insane. So what does he do? He buys out the local bar. All the village comes. He gives open house on everybody. Everyone's drinking, celebrating, having a great time. He's dancing too. But he's celebrating for a different reason. He's celebrating because of the letter from the king. They're celebrating simply, and we're a body and a soul. So when Shabbat comes around, or anything Jewish we do, you can't ignore the body. You got to give the body a good time. Got to have quality food, quality drink, good company. You need that. And then it allows you some openness. The body's like, okay, I'm having a good time. And then you can let the soul kind of connect to the deeper reason. Why are we doing Shabbat? Not just for the challah or the wine, but we're also doing it because of the power of this time that we're in. So it's kind of making sure both are happy and are living happy lives as Jews, as physically and spiritually.
Right. Very different than the ascetic lifestyle.
Right. Which has its place in a way, it's a longer discussion, but like you have to first master it and not be consumed by it. If you're like, okay, I'm gonna do great physicality in my life, it's easy to get sucked in because we're kind of, the body's louder than the soul at first. So, but growing up, my dad he always like, I want to give you the best of both worlds. I want you to be balanced with a good physical life and a good spiritual life. I was an extreme of the 4 kids. I went totally down the physical path, and then I totally went down the spiritual path. And now in this part of my life, I'm trying to
bring that together.
Yeah.
Understood. As in New York, you're doing these experiences also. So every week you're doing a Shabbos experience like this?
No, there's always, in Judaism, we mark the calendar. It's kind of the energy of the time. So whenever there's a holiday, Purim, Passover, Tu B'Shvat, I'm always making an event around the theme of that holiday. So that's a major part. And then we have like weekly classes, Jewish mysticism classes. We'll have Shabbat. So it's kind of like a blend. It's not Shabbat every week, but
very
it's
cool.
Yeah.
This is not Chabad, right?
I mean, I went through the Chabad yeshiva system, so it plays a major role in from Maya Note to Ole Torah. So I had a bit of everything. I've had a pretty eclectic path of.
I got you.
Yeah,
but
taking from everywhere. That's been something that maybe you can relate to. I think like Chabad is a beautiful foundation. I do feel though that any one group we need to open ourselves to learning from what's out there, because there's such a rich amount of knowledge in different Hasidic groups, in learning Kabbalah on its own, learning Musar, learning Gemara, everything there is in Judaism, and different. My mother's Sephardic, my dad's Ashkenazi. just taking and from the gamut of what Judaism has to offer. And that's what I feel like I
Right.
enjoy doing now.
Remember when I was in high school in yeshiva, and I read a book. I think it was by Joseph Telushkin and Dennis Prager. I don't remember what the book was, but I remember it talking about like comparing and contrasting different ways within Judaism. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Why the Jews, maybe? There's one on anti-Semitism they did together, maybe not that one.
It's possible. I definitely read that book. Remember when I was reading it, it gave me an appreciation of Hasidus, because when you're taught it, and that's all I knew growing up, then there's non-Jews, and then this is Judaism. It didn't really, I don't feel like until I read that book and started seeing different ways of practicing Judaism and appreciating that some do it this way for a reason, some do it that way for a reason, that you can actually appreciate your own much more. Like, what is the strand of uniqueness in this practice that the Baal Shem Tov or the Alter Rebbe was communicating?
It's beautiful. So within Judaism, that's true. And I think also if it takes guts, it takes a little bit of kind of confidence and groundedness in your belief system to do this. But I think also you've probably gained a lot of value outside of Judaism from wisdom that you've found everywhere. And it doesn't detract from your love.
No, it enhances.
It enhances because it's just different language for ideas that can be found. I do believe can be found, and I have found within Torah and within Judaism, but the language sometimes from other sources can help us understand them in a new light. I was 2 weeks ago, I was in Spain, and I spent one day in Ibiza. But what people don't know, Ibiza is not just a party place. It's also a beautiful like nature place, a bit of a hippie kind of side to it. And a friend of mine, she does once a week a tea and poetry like experience. And it was amazing because she makes the tea, you sit down, it's a beautiful nature area, makes the tea, and like it's silent, and pours it in and out, and like you have a cup, and then everyone drinks it quietly, and then we do another one. It's very like, and for me, like you and I make a blessing over water, and then we go right into it, and that experience really like brought home for me the power of being fully present and grateful, and like the power of just enjoying this world in a mindful way, which I know about and I've worked on.
Right.
That is what a blessing is. That is what shahakol is. That is what Chassidus and Kabbalah teaches us. But sometimes you have to experience it in other places and in other lights to bring home what you may have learned in a Torah text. So I'm sure you found that in different places.
I've learned a lot about Judaism from the 12 steps. There's no question. Yeah, 100%. And I remember my first time in an ayahuasca experience and seeing all the ritual, which some of it I was uncomfortable with and it felt antithetical to Judaism, but a lot of the other stuff gave me a real appreciation for the rituals. I was like, oh, wow. Like, here's another practice, thousands of years old, where they're using all of these rituals as a way to connote a certain seriousness or sacredness or intention to what's going on here. We're not just sitting around and drinking something and hope it works. We're putting a lot around it. And that ritual, not only was it cool to experience, and I'm not even talking about the medicine itself. Not only was it cool to experience the ritual, but it gave me an appreciation for my own.
Because as Jews growing up, we probably look at hamotzi and the rituals we do as kind of like, oh, I've done this already times before. I bet you if you brought someone not Jewish to their first ever Shabbat, they'd be like, you're raising the bread in the air and you're washing your hands 3 times, and like you're making on the wine, you're blessing your children with your hands over their head. Like these are powerful. When I remember I was in Miami at the Sacred Space. They have this book about gems, and I always kind of laughed at the concept of like crystals, and maybe if I have a crystal, it does something. And then I'm like, it just hit me. I'm like, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest in the temple, had a breastplate. He had a necklace that had 12 different stones on them, and it would light up in prophetic insight with Hebrew letters. And like, yes, this concept of the power of gems, or incense, or noticing that the reverence that other cultures have for certain rituals actually reminds us of the power and the uniqueness and the strength of like a lot of rituals we have in Judaism that we probably gloss over because we've done it so many times.
100%. Yeah, there's no question that a lot of those things have given me an appreciation. I think there's though a concept, I don't know where I heard it, that like going on the search for the purpose of returning is not okay, but sometimes the search just unfolds naturally, and then
Like
Meaning, maybe a different way of saying it is, to sin with the purpose of repentance. But sin is a strong word in this context.
I was thinking about this in terms of compassion, guilt, and shame and stuff. Like, there's practical reasons why we can have self-compassion, the idea that we're not angels, because as a Baal Tshuva, I was very hard on myself. I was like a perfectionist. And I thought that self-compassion meant that I was like taking it easy on myself, like being a loser. Like, no, you did something wrong. You got to really own up to it. And I wrote a book, and the first chapter was a story of the difference between a painting and a photograph. Why does a painting sell for $1 million and a photograph of the same thing can go for 25 cents? When the photograph actually is more accurate.
Right.
It's actually better than the painting, because the beauty of a painting is the effort taken by a mortal being to try to make perfection, to try to be good, to try to make something good. That's what God values over an angel, is a human that gets up and falls. And I realized, like, the purpose of life isn't being never falling, it's getting up. Like, if you can get up, you're a warrior. That's what that adds the most light into the world. Fine. So that's one way of looking at it. But on a deeper, like, mystical level, I was thinking, and psychological level, where did that come from? I think it comes from your divine side, your soul trying to connect to transcendence, trying to connect to truth, trying to connect to source. But the body and animal soul, as we study Chassidus, directs that into be like, no, this immediate pleasure is going to fulfill that for you. Do it. And there's a part of you that's like, yes, that's true. It feels right. And then it's empty, and then it doesn't fulfill it because it was a mirage. It's a bit of a mirage. Didn't happen. So the reason I'm saying this is I think that concept of, like, don't purposely sin or go off the wrong direction that'll lead you, that's of course true. But the reason teshuvah works, the reason why we can actually turn negativity and negative paths we've taken, not only good, but like it propels us into like much more good than if we were just living our lives kind of straight the whole time, is because that energy that goes towards it is rooted in a good intention. And there's some Hasidic masters, they're a little more, I think Ishbitz, Radzin, it'll come to me, that touch on this. It's not really studied so much, but they say, like, lechatchila, before the fact, don't sin. After the fact, on some level, it might have had to happen for a reason, that stage of your life, in order for you to then reach a higher place.
You'd have to say if it happened, then it had to happen. And then you have the concept of a Baal Tshuva, right? That a Baal Tshuva can reach somewhere.
Right, yeah. Right. Or a Baal Tshuva can reach a place, yeah.
But someone told me
like
this, which is, what is a Baal Tshuva? It means a master of return, which suggests that it's a master of returning, which suggests that it's an active process. It's not this one time they were doing something wrong and now they've corrected it. They've mastered this art of returning.
They say that angels are called omdim, the ones who stand, and humans are called mahalchim, the ones who move.
Keep moving, right?
We're always moving. It doesn't mechail l'chail. It seems to be the Rebbe's big message. It's like, don't get stagnant.
Right, keep going.
Because life is. I think people think that life is just like, when you're out there. I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, and you go to the escalator that's straight on the airport. Yeah. You're kind of like, what is this all about, kind of thing. But people might think life's like that. If I don't feed myself spiritually, I'll coast. I'll be fine. And I don't think it's like that. I think life is the escalator going down. It's a little bit negative, but if you coast and never, like at least on a daily basis, try to fill yourself with something positive or holy, your nature and the world will slowly pull you down. And we have to be mahalchim. We have to be moving. We have to be not 10 hours a day necessarily, but a little.
Yeah, in business, I'll say grow or die, right?
Okay.
You're either growing or slowly withering away. If we don't clean a room for a while, somehow things will just fall out of place. They don't fall into place.
Right. You can tell me more on the business side, but I was watching an interview with Peter Thiel with the CEO of Apple, and he was like chiding him. He's probably not used to getting chided, but Thiel was like, you guys are sitting on like $500 billion and you're not innovating. You're doing the next iPhone and the next, you got to like, so that was an interesting, because like it won't last forever. And the guy's like, I think it's going to last we're doing quite fine for ourselves, but it was an interesting.
Right. Is there,
if you're not innovating or moving.
There's a book, The Innovator's Dilemma, which is, interesting about the concept of innovating. But the point he makes there is that you sometimes have to destroy yourself in order to make the next thing.
So in the Talmud, Reb Zera, it says he was a master of the Babylonian Talmud. But when he moved to Israel to study the Jerusalem Talmud, it says he fasted for 40 days or longer in order to forget the original learning, all the learning he had done. Like, that's a bit extreme. Like, build upon your knowledge. But he's like, no, this new level is not like a comparable level. It's a completely new level that my prior conception of understanding things will hold me back from reaching a higher state. And they say in the next world, our soul does the same thing. When you go from one level to the next, you dip in the Nahar Dinor, this spiritual like river that causes you to forget the past level, which doesn't make sense if you're going from A to B or going from 5th grade to 6th grade. It does make sense if you're going from 3rd grade to Einstein's theory of relativity. Like when you're going to something completely higher, sometimes you have to go in the cold plunge, start fresh. and I don't know what that means for us. I mean, I think it means being open to new experiences, being open to maybe seismic growth if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, one of the things I've thought about, both in a business and healing perspective, I've seen it, is that they say what got you here won't get you there, or the concept, but sometimes even more than that, is what freed you from the last place is now the prison of the new place. And I'll give you an example. So let's say in business, you have 2 guys, 20 years old, both starting out. And in order for one guy to succeed, say over the other, but one of those succeed, they'll have to work hard. At that place, it's just tireless work and putting in the hours, doing what's needed, and not stopping. At a certain point in time, that's going to kill you. If you have 8 or 10 employees, let's say, like you've worked hard and now you've got up to this state, now you have to step back and do some planning. So that thing that freed you from the last place, which is relentless hard work, which is kind of almost working with the feet in some way, just move, just do it, put in the hours, do what you got to do a little bit of everything. At some point in time, now you've got to a place, if you keep doing that, you're going to destroy yourself and your company. Take a step back and now start thinking, hey, this guy might be in the wrong position. I may need to spend some time pumping him up. Maybe the best thing for me to do is to take him out to dinner, which is the worst thing to do in the last place. And if you can't free yourself from that, and then let's say as it goes from there, what's needed is a really healthy ability to take risk, because we're going from 0 to 1. So if you're not willing to bet everything, then, or most of everything, you can't get where you need to go. You don't have enough juice in the tank. You can't hold some back. But then at some point in time, you say, hey, Warren Buffett's not betting everything anymore, right? He's holding some back, the tank, and the ability to say, okay, I'm not playing with all my chips. Because eventually, if you bet everything every time, you're going to most likely lose at some point. So now there's a new strategy, and the risk-taking that got you from 0 to 1 is going to kill you if you don't now turn it to maybe a more conservative strategy, and on we go. And in healing, I've seen similar things. In
a very just micro on that, there's a lot of nuggets of you shared there is I used to, every event that I did, and I've done hundreds, it was like do or die, every event. If this doesn't get a certain amount of people, if it's not on this level of quality, not only did it fail for this one, but maybe this is just not meant for me, I'm a failure altogether. And what I've come to now, I still hold myself to like a high standard, but it's more of like, this is just one event of many. I'm in it for the long haul. This is a learning experience. Like I did jujitsu for 3 years, and they say you get tapped out a lot. And the idea is like, either you win or you learn, no matter what it is. And like, you challenge yourself to hard things, and it's not make or break or do or die. And when you go with that kind of perspective, it takes a little bit of the weight, off your shoulders. Yeah.
So you're saying at the beginning there was a quality that was
like desperation, or like,
right.
By the way, it applied to Baal Tshuva, the thing we were talking about before also. Like I remember I came to my mashpia, Rabbi Tauger, and I said, Rabbi, I missed the time for the Kriya Shema. The morning Shema, there's a certain time where you have to say the Shema by halachically. Right now it's late in Miami. It's like 10 a.m. So you can live a pretty lax life if you want. But I woke up too late for it. And at that stage of my spiritual journey, I was so spiritually sensitive that it like broke me if I woke up late for it. So he's like, you need to become like the from birth, like those who are religious our whole life. You need to be more chill about it. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, how could you say that? You're like my mentor. And he's like, he said a beautiful thing. He said, this is not a fling. This is not a short romance. This is a marriage. So your Judaism, your relationship with God, a lot of Baal Tshuvas were like, some do it really fiery for like 3 months and then they fizzle out. This isn't just a momentary moment. This is something you're kind of committing to as a lifelong practice. So therefore, a marriage will have plenty of fights, ups and downs. If it's this like whirlwind romance, then every little thing is magnified and like in the good and the bad. And he's trying to say, take that approach, which might look negative, maybe from your perspective, like,
Right.
a lot of people who are religious their whole life are like, I wish we had more fervor, but there is a beautiful quality of like, I'm still going to wake up and daven. I'm still going to, that kind of religious mentality of like, I'm committed to this, even when I'm not feeling it all the time. Whereas Baal Tshuva is like, man, if I'm not feeling it, like, I don't know if I can even. So I like the qualities in both, the newness and the fire from a Baal Tshuva, but also that kind of commitment, like I'm in this and there'll be good days and there'll be bad days, but I'm going to stick at it kind of approach.
Right. And I wonder if that's what some of what you were mentioning with Reb Zera and the Babylonian Talmud, like that way was good for that, and now it has to be forgotten if I want to get the new way.
It has like interesting.
Like you had to approach it with that newness if you were going to take on a new lifestyle. If you didn't have that intensity, okay, but now it's not new anymore.
It's true. That's true. And getting comfortable in
I forget that way.
Yeah.
Where I've thought about it in healing is, I was a member of the 12 steps for a long time, and just, hey, I'm Eli, I'm an addict. Hey, I'm Eli, I'm an addict. That was something I just got so used to saying. And that was important for me for a long time. And now I think it would hurt me to embrace that. I think it would give me a certain pass. That's what I saw, is that it started giving me a certain pass that I didn't need anymore. So where it started off as, hey, I'm an addict, and therefore I need to really protect myself in different ways and have a meeting schedule and a sponsor and a therapist and, real locks on my computer and different things. I was addicted to pornography and various other sexual stuff, strip clubs, massage parlors, prostitutes, like all of that world. So I needed a lot of rigidity around it. But then now I'm years in, and I don't know, in 6 or 7 years, I had one slip with pornography. So still saying that I'm an addict. Now, what can happen, right? I remember I was in a restaurant once, and I go to the bathroom, and it's like a cafe or something. I go to the bathroom, and it was a French cafe, and inside they have pictures of, they have like nudity in the men's bathroom. And I didn't notice. I'm standing over the urinal. At some point, I look up, and it's there, right? So obviously, I don't consider that a slip on pornography. That would be like, we can bump into things. But if I'm telling myself I'm an addict, then now there's this little excuse in my head that's like, oh, I've had a drink unintentionally, which is the addict mindset, is I'm somehow allergic to this, and there's an allergic response of mind, body, and spirit. This is AA talk. What that happens when I consume this, and therefore I'm going to stay away 100%, which was very necessary. 7 years ago, that meant being comfortable having filters on my phone, being comfortable telling my IT department, don't give me access to Google Images because I may use it for pornography. But 7 years later, it's more than 7 years later, but it's more like 10 years later, but 7 years into having more solidity, in unintentional interaction with pornography could now become an excuse that I use to say, okay, now let things go. So something that helped me, not only helped me, I really needed to embrace this, now is becoming a little bit of prison, and maybe let this go. Yeah,
you've done so much work, like, to not acknowledge that. It doesn't mean you're not aware of your past and like what can happen potentially, but it's also being like, it's not true. It's not a true statement to not take into account everything else.
Correct.
That you've gone
Correct.
through.
And I know that flies in the face of a lot of what 12 Steps teaches, but
right. I don't know that system so well, but yeah, I know that's like it's saying it's like something that you're connected to. Do you look at that at your whole life as like, this is a journey I had to go on so that I could then help part of my own journey of healing, but also something I'd be able to give back to others? This concept of like, I had to go this path in order to do the good and bring the light that I'm in the world? Or
yeah, there's 100%, but that's not enough. And the other is not enough. So what I often say, the healing process goes through kind of 3 stages. One is removal of the infection. So whatever it was, and the infection comes in many sorts. Sometimes it's a certain anxiety that we take on and we have more fear. sometimes it's negative beliefs about ourselves in the world. The world is not a safe place, or, I am disgusting or weak, or whatever ideas people, there's something wrong with me. So that's the infection that needs to be removed. But that's not enough, because I got this infection. It was really painful for 15, 20 years. I removed it. Now what? So then find some meaning. And the meaning is kind of feels to me like more purpose, more personal. It's, okay, why did I have to go through this in some way? What did it change inside me? And that's important, but if that's all it does, there'll still something be eating at us and say, that's not enough of a reason.
Yeah.
But then we can turn it into a purpose. So removal of infection, then meaning, personal meaning, and then purpose outside of us, then all of that, then it kind of feels like, oh, okay, I would have chosen this challenge as well.
Right.
So it's both of those. If I just had the purpose of helping others from it, like saying, okay, I was sexually abused. Now I'm not going to worry about healing it, removing the infection or anything else. I'm just going to help other victims of sexual abuse. I don't know that true healing will set in. But if I just said, I'm going to heal it, and I'm going to find some personal meaning in my life, and I'm not going to use it to help others in some way, doesn't mean necessarily victims of sexual abuse. It could be, we can do it in a million different ways, is channel this into a purpose, then it still won't kind of put this matter to rest. Yeah. I think healing needs all of those.
And your process of healing will then help others do the same. I heard a beautiful idea from a teacher of mine, Rabbi Braun. He said that we just celebrated Passover, Pesach, and the 9th plague is darkness. And God tells Moshe, please tell the people to take treasure from their neighbors. When the plague of darkness comes, the Egyptians had treasure that they had taken from the Jews. And it's funny, we were on a vacation once, and it was a Credit Suisse conference. And we know that the Swiss had a lot of the money of the Jews through the German banks. So my dad's, he has no filter, and he went up to one of them. He's like, where's my money? They're like, what? But anyways, so he says, so the question that's asked is, God rarely says please. Not that God's probably not polite, but in general, the Torah is like very exacting.
What would be the Hebrew word for that?
I think kach na, like na is please. Please ask the Egyptians for treasure. And what's oddly strange, not only is please rarely used, except like bring your son as a sacrifice to Abraham, major momentous requests that were tough to ask for. This is the opposite of that. This is treasure from people that are oppressing you. That doesn't need a please. Mid-sentence, Moshe's like, no problem, we got this. Right. So why please? And when we realize that the Torah is not this ancient 3,300-year-old book that we're just like learning about old stories year in, year out. We left Egypt, like, I get it. Why are we repeating it? Because it's our daily life is leaving our Egypt. You know this idea, Mitzrayim, Egypt, is the same word as Meitzarim, which is our limitations. That every day we're talking about leaving Egypt because every day we have to leave what's holding us back, what's limiting us. So when the plague of darkness happens, and when Moshe is told, ask for treasure, it's our personal lives, something. So the idea he shared that he heard was that your darkness, your plague of darkness, the thing that is most dark for you, God says, please find treasure here. Please ask, please look, please search in the place of darkness for something valuable that you can pull from that experience. Not saying it was good or saying it was, but there's something here to teach us. There's something here that we can extract from. And the plague of darkness says that they were stuck. They couldn't even get up. It was so dark. So you could look at that as almost like a depression. Like the Egyptians couldn't rise. It was so dark. It was, sometimes you get in a state of darkness that's much worse than having a room that's dark. It's that inside there's nothing worse, because I always say, people are like, where's heaven and hell? Like, you could have two people sitting on a couch, one's in heaven and one's in hell. Yeah. It's your mind you are where the Baal Shem Tov says, you are where your thoughts are. So clearly you've done that. You've been able to find the treasure in darkness and be able to take value from those.
Right. Yeah, and it's been, I appreciate you noticing that. And, it's definitely important. What I wanted to flag there was just that it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough just to find the help in others. It's also important to find the personal meaning. One of the ways that I've looked at business challenges, any challenges, is that there's a change that the world is needing from me, that God is needing from me, and like to become something I wasn't before from this. And these kind of challenges, you're not going to be the same. There's a different person standing in front of you after any of these major experiences, and that's that change. It's becoming someone someone else. And that's the meaning, right? That's very personal. I don't have to help anyone or do anything. I'm just a changed person from this experience. Like
And
that's so important. The reason I'm flagging that is I see there's often a rush to go, let me help others. Let me help others.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. What was that? It was Rabbi Sol Salanter or whoever it was says, at first I wanted to change the world. It's too difficult. So I said, I'm going to change my city. So I couldn't really do that. So I said, I'm going to change my neighborhood. I realized that was too difficult. So I said, I'm just going to change my household. I'm going to get my household to be the best it can be. Then I realized I can't even change them. I just have to try to work on myself. And I'm still working at that.
Right.
So, and then he said, if I had started with myself, then I could have had an effect on my family, on my community, my city, and my world. And I think life is really those two things. How much can I work on my character and grow throughout my life as best as possible? And then how much impact can I have on the world as well, which they do play off each other. Like, you know where I like to think about this? It says, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love someone like you love yourself. So people usually say, well, that means you have to love yourself first, and then you can love others as much as you love yourself. But I worked with teenagers for a while, and a lot of them, if they're depressed and have no purpose, I said, you know what? Get out of yourself for a little bit. Go volunteer. See what value you can bring to the world outside of your own, because you get so consumed in your own life. And my grades, and did this girl say yes when I asked her to the dance? And like, otherwise I'm a failure. No, there's a bigger world out there. So another way you could read it is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Through V'ahavta l'reacha, through loving another, you will also come to love yourself. Of course, not in a unhealthy way. But this line of loving another as you love yourself also, it works both ways. You have to work on your own self-love, your own reality, and you also, by focusing outward, you can find your purpose as well and learn to appreciate yourself.
Yeah, it's that process that goes back and forth. I had a recent episode I released. I called it I Am Patient Zero, where it's that recognition that, like, I'm always back in the therapist chair, quote unquote. Not therapy necessarily, but I'm always back in the chair of, okay, what is the change for me here? It says, if you know Aleph, teach Aleph. So there's two parts of that. One is, if you know Aleph, then teach it. But also, if you know Aleph, don't teach the whole Aleph base. So, and like that's, I guess that's the other side that I'm cautioning is, so many who've entered the healing world, it's like they've gotten a little bit of it. Right. They're saying, okay, let me help others. And I don't know why, but in the past few months, there's been a number of, whether it's therapists or people who run treatment centers or stuff like that, reaching out to me. And sometimes you can just see on the other end of the phone someone struggling, but they're better than before. They're no longer drinking themselves to sleep every single day. Okay, so that's better. But they're only running a treatment center. And it's like, but what about you? Like, how did the healing on you stop? How did the focus come off of you? And that's, I think, one of the messages that I keep getting reminded of, because I do this and people call me and everything else, is like, don't stop on yourself. Like, absolutely do not. It's gotta come back.
I just spent 2 weeks in Israel, and part of that was in Yerushalayim and Tzfat and these places, and I noticed it for myself. I'm like, especially when you're in New York, there's something about that, like, outward focused work and hustle that you forget about your own, like, mental health, your own spirituality. So taking breaks and finding those moments are really important, because you can only give what you have in your cup, and you have to 100%. Be able to, and I think it's okay to, like you said, teach Aleph is that, like, be open and clear and vulnerable in what you have to offer. You don't have to go further than that, but just fully embrace, the gifts that you have. You don't have to overstep or try to know everything.
Right, and just keep going. There's so much to...
The rabbi is tough, because people expect you to know everything. As a rabbi, it's tough, yeah.
So what do you do with that?
I'm trying to get better at being like, refer them if there's a certain topic or something that I feel is maybe not my, someone just asked me to go on a podcast about love and relationships. And I'm like, well, I'm single, and I mean, I can give some wisdom that I've learned, but I don't know if I have that grounded, because nothing beats experience. Right. So I'm like, until I'm married, for 5-10 years, I don't know if I should be, but I still help couples, and I still officiate weddings, and I still give, what I have? My parents have a beautiful marriage for 40 years. They love each other still. Like, so that's given me, thank God, a lot of, like, insight, even without having my own. But Yeah, it's tough not to want to help even when you're not the most qualified in something.
Yeah, I don't know where I remember thinking of this is that, with a lawyer, you wouldn't ask a lawyer any legal question. You know, He'd say, "Oh, you guy says this is
Right.
what I deal with. I deal with contract law. I know nothing about immigration." Like, you may as well ask anyone else. Just because I'm a lawyer doesn't mean I know anything about immigration law. I just deal with contract. But with a rabbi, there's this expectation that
Although with Google now and ChatGPT, the beauty is they think you're brilliant. Like, oh, Rabbi, when is, tell me, I'm like, dude, you could have just looked that up, but I'll do it for you and you'll think I'm like extra intelligent. But
I hear that. So one of the things we spoke about before offline was there seems to be another. You mentioned experiential Judaism and giving people certain experiences. That's saying, okay, feel this experience and let's infuse it with Judaism and see how Judaism has a lot to offer. So one of the things we spoke about offline is the fact that there seems to be another spiritual renaissance. Maybe we can say the same as psychedelic renaissance. I think it's separate and apart from it. It's connected. When that happens, then there seem to be these ancient tools that emerge and become part of the everyday vocabulary and consciousness. And it certainly seems to have happened again. While it was going on a lot a few years ago, it seems like in the last year, kind of post-COVID, all of a sudden this explosion of conversations around psychedelics, including within the Jewish community. Last time this happened in the 60s and 70s, the Judaism didn't get in on the action. And Chabad maybe did by having a bunch of Baal Teshuvos. Right. And I know that, there a number of them had psychedelic experiences, were Jewish, and said, okay, how do I now look at this spiritual reality that I've just been introduced to?
Right.
And okay, there's a home for it somewhat within Judaism, but there were Eastern religions that had certain ideas that were able to penetrate the everyday language and consciousness of people's Buddhism and meditation and other ideas. A lot of other Eastern religions, Sufism, managed to penetrate, I think, in some ways much more than Judaism did. And not necessarily in terms of Judaic practice, any more than someone becoming a full Buddhist just because they went to a meditation. But there were certain ideas that became kind of accepted within. I'll give you an example of that. So Shabbos. This has become accepted within Western culture. We're going to take a day off.
Right.
Even 2 days off. But there's the concept of Shabbos, of Sabbath in some way, which you would think would go in the face of a lot of capitalistic ideas. But somehow this Jewish idea kind of got embedded into the culture, and it said, a day of rest is good for us.
Right.
So do you think there's a way for Judaism to kind of get in on it this time around, not miss the boat?
I think so. And where should I start with this? From 2000, when I was working with teenagers in California, I noticed that they would always disappear on certain weekends in April. I said, guys, where are you going? They said, we're going to a Coachella music festival.
Okay.
It's like, okay, so you're always going these weekends. I'm trying to do events to get you. Why don't I meet you guys where you're at? So for 3 years in a row, I think it was like 2015 to 17, I collaborated with a group in LA, and we did Shabbat tent in Coachella. Like right in front of the entrance, we had this big tent, and there was free food, free drink, sofas. We would do a Torah reading on Shabbat. We did bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, tefillin, and just hanging out and talking about life. I'm standing out there, and I was thinking, this is pretty cool. This is new.
And who came? Was it Jews, non-Jews, everyone?
Everyone. But a lot of Jews. I mean, LA, so many Jews from LA would come to the festival, and you're meeting them in a place that's not the synagogue. It's not the normal. I was very naive. I didn't know everybody was on Molly and everyone's on, tripping out. So they're so loving and so interested in spirituality. So that helped. But the idea that I wanted to get to is that I'm standing out there and I'm like, this is this very new age approach to Judaism. And it hit me no, this is how Judaism started. Abraham and Sarah, the founders of Judaism, were standing in a desert with a tent.
And food.
Open home, free food, free drink. Abram was this advanced, brilliant mystic, as was Sarah, and master in astrology, knew this idea of the one divine infinite being that he was sharing with people. And that's how it started, not in a normal synagogue setting. So instead of saying, okay, how can we make Judaism fit New Age spirituality. I think it's just reimagining and reframing and rediscovering what we have already in a new light. So like, if you went to the temple in Jerusalem thousands of years ago, forget Burning Man. This was an unbelievable experience. You were walking barefoot up a mountain with a golden and sapphire building, incense smoke, Levites, Levim, who were trained from a young age how to sing and play certain instruments to evoke a emotional experience from the person. So I'm not trying to recreate the Beis Hamikdash. What I try to do is incorporate sound, incorporate scent, incorporate the senses, because the senses is really what connects your soul and body. It's really that bridge. And I'm trying to help people have what we call a soul experience. But, Chabad stands for Chochmah Bina Dat. I feel like the Dat part is what we need to do more of, is being lost. We have great Torah classes, great intellectual experiences, and great action. But the bridge between mind and heart, the Das, the intimate connection. We know it says Adam knew Eve. The Das, knowledge, means an intimate connection to an idea. You have to give people space to get quiet and to connect to what they just learned in almost an emotional, soul-sensory way that really powerfully connects them with what we have to offer. And I think I try to do it. I think we've had success. I think it does exist in certain places in the Jewish world. And it's not trying to be something else. It's just learning from what's out there and also rediscovering what we've always had and reimagining how to offer it. And, there might be a fear, like, are you trying to change what always was? And I heard a beautiful line. It says, we don't want eternal form and changing truths. We want eternal truth and changing form. And that means that eternal form would be maybe orthodoxy. It's got to be this way. But changing truths might be, I don't want to call out any Jewish movement or anything, but it would be like, we're going to adjust the way Torah is and Judaism is in order to make it more palatable for people. Because they don't like this way, so let's just make it something else.
Right.
We want eternal truth. We don't want to dilute anything. We want this to be the ancient Jewish Torah experience that we've celebrated our ancestors throughout history. But changing form means it does not have to take place in the way that we always think it has to. Maybe it is a meditation on the beach. Maybe we daven the Friday night service in a different kind of environment. We keep the truth, but we are more flexible in how we experience it.
I like that. Yeah, it sounds like something that can catch on. Is your organization doing well, Solex? You said you have about 100 people.
Yeah, we could use some funding and some backing and people coming to more things. And sky's the limit. So for me to say good, I'm really honestly, maybe you've experienced this in your life where, like, I've been at this for probably 12 years, like outreach work in the community, and only in the last 6 months to a year would I say, like, it's almost now like reaping. Like, it's all coming, like the momentum in New York and now Miami and other cities. We did Tel Aviv, LA. But it's not just a matter of like a lot of stuff. It's like you feel like it's resonating now, and people are getting, like, I feel like it's hitting a chord that I didn't feel that the same way before. I don't know what that is, but I feel like you just got to keep your head down and just keep at something. And I remember watching an interview with Scooter Braun, and he said, like, before he found Justin Bieber, he was like crying to his dad that he was a failure and he was going to end. He's just done. And his dad's like, you have enough money for like 3 to 6 more months, just see it out. So like, he's like, his lesson was like, just when you think you're not going to make it, just keep going. And I think, thank God, I don't know where it's headed, but meaning what will come, but I feel the momentum now.
How do you measure success?
Honestly, quality and quantity. Some would just say quality. Like, I see people were really moved. I got good feedback. I see people meeting each other and dating. I see people maybe observing more or feeling they healed something. That's quality. But honestly, quantity and the people that are coming. So quantity in that, instead of maybe a couple of years ago, I would have had 30 people. Now it's 100 people. And it doesn't feel like 100 people chaos. It feels like a cohesive, intimate 100 people, which means people are listening and they're appreciating what they're coming to that they wouldn't get at Live or at some other Soho house. They're getting something that provides a opportunity to meet people in a very real way and for them to engage their deeper self. And Yeah. Lost my train of thought.
That's cool. I hope we get an opportunity to do one here. I can see it. I can see it doing well. I can see myself enjoying it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm patient zero at the end of the day. So
I would love it.
I
would
wanna
love it.
experience
And on
some of
that,
these things.
but not to put you in a certain box, but in New York for the first time in my life, I'm having people from Crown Heights, from other maybe religious backgrounds coming to stuff. And in San Diego, there are none. So I always thought my mission is just to work in the unaffiliated, non-religious community, but I do see the value it brings to those that are maybe curious grew up religious, but are looking for a different perspective.
Well, there's an advantage and a disadvantage to being introduced to it from a young age. It can get stale easier.
Right.
The meaning can be stripped from it. Usually, we can know the practice, we can know the words very well. We can, all of that can be easy, but the spirit of it can very easily be removed.
Do you feel no matter how someone grows up, at the end of the day, you have to choose it at some point? Or
That's
some
been
people
my
never
journey.
do?
That's been my journey. I walked away from it completely.
Okay.
So I walked away from all of it. Does someone have to choose it?
I guess you could live your whole life, but I feel like even if you do live your whole life, at some point, not choose it fully, like maybe not, but maybe like make it own it in your own personal way, but maybe not. Everyone has their own journey, their own story.
Right. I do believe that putting our own unique stamp on it, I think is so important. Is that it's not. It felt like I was taught a cookie cutter way, like this is the right way and this is the exact stuff. And it's okay, like, so maybe you mapped out an ideal, but the 12 steps showed me this a lot. That every meeting had its flavor in some way, and they took out some things and then put others. There were certain things that, okay, this is letter of the law kind of thing. Like, we're not going to mess with that. But then, hey, we'll lean a little bit more towards this. Like, I went to a 12-step meeting, I remember once in California, and Saturday night, lights off, all candlelight. And it just had a different vibe to it, which felt completely different than anything I would experience, than anything I have experienced in any of the many meetings I've went to in Miami or New York. Like, you almost can't imagine it there. In New York, they'd...
Right. And I think, like, in a relationship...
In New York, someone flipped the lights on, for sure.
Right. Come on, let's get moving. In a relationship, you probably have, there's like a date night or a moment where you like see your partner in like a different light. And hopefully religion, I don't like the word religion, but in your relationship with the divine, there can be different, like maybe you're off in nature or you do some experience, you're at a concert, whatever it is, and you like, because God is music, God is nature, all the things we love, who like came up with it? So you can find, not just came up with it, but if you want to get into the mystical path, is it? Not limited to it. I mean, get into the theology of it, but it's all within the divine expression. So when you hold a flower, when you enjoy a bird, when you hear your favorite rapper's song, like who actually is the foundation and the source of like all the things that we value, and you can find God there. God's not limited to just the way we think, and to like get refreshed sometimes in how you connect. Well, I think the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, said, unless you've seen, back then, he didn't come to America. He said, unless you've seen the Swiss Alps, you can't appreciate the greatness of like godliness. Really? Which is like strange. You're like, he was somebody who was learning Torah all day. What do you mean, nature? And by the way, the Ethics of Our Fathers has that famous one that says, somebody who's looking at a nature, someone who's learning Torah and stops learning the Bible, stops learning Torah and says, look at this beautiful tree, is like it's like the worst thing. It says like Chayav Misa, something like that. So it's very strange. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I heard a beautiful explanation. Read what it's saying exactly. If you're studying Torah and then you stop and then you say, what a beautiful tree, meaning that there's Torah, there's God stuff, there's like godly reality, and then there's like nature. And that's a big no-no. When you don't make a separation between your religious experience and your other life, you actually find the same God in those Torah stories as you do in a tree, in nature. When there's no division, that's the way to
so the emphasis is not on the word, like not going to the tree, it's on stopping.
It's on the stopping.
That you thought this was something different.
Yeah. It's
Right. You asked about making it kind of your own? Does everyone need to do that? I have found that not only important for myself, but to get that passion back into it, which, I remember being at a Shabbos meal in Crown Heights, and this was early 12 steps for me. So I started in 2013. So let's say it was 2015. And at that point in time, only through the 12 steps did I feel comfortable saying I believe in God. Before then, I was somewhere between, the way I described it, actually, I remember in an early meeting, I said, if God exists, I hate him. So that was where I was. But here I was saying comfortably, and I was sitting at a meal in Crown Heights, and somehow the conversation got to all younger guys, right? Late 20s, early 30s. And the conversation got to God, and I was the only one at the table comfortable saying that I believe in God.
Wow.
And these guys were not the most religious. I want to be clear. I wasn't talking to guys, but these were all people who either they were living in Crown Heights, they were going to shul. We went from shul upstairs and the ones who had kids had them in Jewish schools, but there was it was stripped from it. A lot of what they had, this was their social life. This is what they knew and who their community was and everything else.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've thought about is, you mentioned Avram earlier, is we're also told the story of him smashing the idols of his father.
Yeah.
And I've thought that maybe there's something more for us in that story. That it's not only he was smashing the idols of his father, he's also smashing the God of his father. And yes, there's a heritage that we attach to, but if we just take what was given to us, if we don't make it our own in any way, then it's an idol. It's not a God we're worshiping.
I've been thinking of idolatry and idol worship so much lately because it's such a focal point of the Torah, and we don't relate to it at all. Like bowing down to a Buddha statue, it's not that. I think all the most refined ways of looking at idolatry, we could take this very far, but at least at what you're saying is anything that's like a barrier to the one, to like, you're putting like a, God is this, and you're like, closing it into a box, but not leaving it open to something much grander, I think can be a form of idolatry. Like you said, God is only the way I learned it in Crown Heights or the way my parents do it. That's sadly, not, I think God has a bad rap. And forget about religious Judaism. In Christianity, the Western world, the way God's portrayed is pretty rough and pretty not someone I'd want to have a relationship with. And I think my job is to do a little rebranding and the true branding of who God is. I mean, so first of all, acknowledging what you said, and we should do a retreat for these guys in Crown Heights, whatever, that it's like go into nature, like go right to like, why are we here and what is this, who is God, and like really grapple with it, and not in a way that they've done in yeshiva, which is like, staring at some older mashpia trying to tell you, like, it's hard. But where was I going with idolatry? A separate point of idolatry. Maybe I'll get back to the original concept of idolatry, but in today's spiritual renaissance, as you were talking about, and this desire for spirituality, I think I'm starting to realize what idolatry is. It's very refined. So there's a lot of amazing spiritual practitioners today, but from a Jewish lens, it's stopping short of the one. So it's like Pachamama, like the divine that's found within the earth, or astrology. And all this stuff is true. We believe there's a divine life force and everything, and like there's differences, right? But I think the Jewish path is to really make sure that we're always connecting it back to the one. That's like so when Avram's breaking the idols, yes, they're probably actual idols, as the Rambam explains. First, the sun and the moon and the rain, they kind of wanted to give a little bit of respect to, because God was channeling blessing through nature, and that devolved down into an idol of a sun, an idol of rain, and it made its way down. But I would just encourage spiritual seekers today, the power of learning it within a Jewish context. Jewish mysticism is that we're saying there is a certain, like in Kabbalah, it talks about that planets are wiser than humans. That a planet is to an angel like a soul, body is to a soul for us. That they manifest through. So there is like a certain
same planet, like the planet Earth.
Yeah, like Saturn, or I think Saturn's connected to Shabbat. Each planet is connected like Earth. And there's actually like astrology, the concept of the star. There is something real. The Talmud talks about it. The day of the week you're born in affects you. However, I heard, I was in Tzfat last Shabbat, 2 Shabbats ago, and he said this idea. He's like, when Abraham saw in the stars that he couldn't have a child, it wasn't in his destiny. God lifted him above the stars. Some say literally, lifted him and said, you can transcend what the horoscope tells you. You can reach what's not destined for you. I can perform miracles for you. You're not limited by it. But another way to read it is God said, you will replace the stars, meaning your people and the 12 tribes and our destiny is to be able to actually have an impact that can go instead of the stars and the planets and running the show, so to speak. All of it to say that when you talk about idolatry, there's so many different ways that I think we call it God, or we call it it's an intermediary. Your boss could be an idol.
Right.
I'm only going to get succeed in life if my boss likes me. It's like, that's not where your blessing's coming from. You have to be respectful. You have to do a great job. But it's just always connecting it back to the one. I think that's our mission as Jews.
Right. I've had a lot of conversations recently about psychedelics, and now you're mentioning idol worship, where they often get spoken about hand in hand. Do you have thoughts on this? I know that so many people, I hear it often, where their knee-jerk reaction is it's idol worship. Like many people have, or sometimes they ask the question, especially around ayahuasca, which has ceremonies and rituals, and how is this not idol worship? How are you not engaging in idol worship? And I've joked that COVID made everyone expert on viruses, and ayahuasca makes everyone experts on idol worship.
Yeah. Funny, I wouldn't go the idol worship route when it comes to psychedelics. I would be more of a question about mental health, and let's make sure if someone's going in that direction, that they know what they're doing, that kind of thing. I could see maybe ayahuasca, because it's so ritualistic, but most psychedelics, someone could just do on their own, or it could be in any context, or even ayahuasca could be done in a context. So idolatry is an interesting way to take it, maybe because you could go into a mind-altered state that kind of could knock down barriers.
The idea of a
believe.
Shaman or a
right.
Oftentimes there's someone there, the rituals, and ayahuasca is traditionally done with someone in the room. I don't know.
I was saying, if we talked about other psychedelics that aren't like ayahuasca.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm saying,
less of a concern. The question is,
right.
the question comes up. I mean, for me, I've heard it many times.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert.
But you haven't heard the question.
Oh, I thought you said, do I think that it's idol?
No, have you heard the question? Just wrestling with the concept, where it's coming from.
I've had the question a ton of times, just in general. What's the Jewish perspective on psychedelics? What's the Torah's perspective on it? I try to find precedent, and when I look in the Talmud, there's one of my favorite stories. What I love about the Talmud is you'll have rabbis that are talking about what happens if an ox gores your cow, and detail minutia. Then you turn the page and there's the most insane story you've ever read. The same rabbis, which I love. It shows you all the basic ritual of Judaism is done by mystics. So the same Rabbi Akiva so the story of the Pardes, the 4 rabbis that meditated, they used divine names, and they elevated to a higher spiritual realm. It says that Ben Zoma went crazy. It says the analogy is that he had too much honey and vomited. He had too much divine experience. It was too much for his brain to handle. Ben Azai had such a love for God. He glimpsed the radiance of the Shekhinah, meaning he felt this it's almost you're being pulled. You don't want to be here. And people have talked about these experiences. Sure. And he says his soul left his body. I just visited some of their Kvarim 2 weeks. It was amazing. Then it says Acher, Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya, he was somebody who liked to study a lot of different things. He studied philosophy. He liked to dabble. And he witnessed something that messed with his mind. There's different interpretations. Some say that he saw the angel Matat sitting, and is a principle that no angel can sit in front of God. They have to be always standing in total kind of submission. So for a moment, he was questioning, are there 2 gods? Are there 2 powers? This angel, and Matat is known as this unbelievable angel. God kind of uses him to speak to Moshe and the Jewish people. And he was banished from heaven. He came back down, and he heard a voice that said, you're done, and he went into heresy. He left everything. But Rabbi Akiva says he entered in peace and he left in peace. At least according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, it adds the word he entered in peace, which is beautiful, meaning he had intention to bring this lofty spiritual experience, back down into his daily living. He wasn't trying to escape like some of the others maybe. He had intention from the beginning. So first thing I say from this experience, I don't believe it was psychedelic. I believe through the lofty level they were and the divine names they used and this path, you can reach transcendent experiences. But I think you can liken it to a psychedelic experience in that they were accessing a higher experience.
Well, they're also using something, right? They're using divine names.
Correct. Good point. They were yes. And
which I've heard there are Kabbalists today who do that.
Interesting.
They won't teach it to you, but they'll do it.
So we could talk about this. I love this subject. I've been studying, especially over COVID, actually, got really into studying Kabbalah and also meditative Kabbalah, which doesn't mean you have to use divine names, but even I'm making a documentary now about Rabbi Avraham Abulafia from the 1200s and his mission. I want to tell a story because he was such a colorful figure. We think of like Orthodox Jews and rabbis, black hat, black jacket, and there's like one way to look at them. He was traveling through Europe, Italy and Sicily and Greece. He was teaching people how to have transcendent states of consciousness through meditating on Hebrew letters and enunciating them and using divine names. And so what I do is I take his teachings, but I only choose like letters. I don't do the full thing. And I've done some amazing experiences with people and I'm still learning it and working on the movie. But so they were using those names, and Rabbi Akiva enters in peace and leaves in peace. And the reason I bring up the story with psychedelics is like we can take lessons from it. So the lesson isn't like, is it bad or is it good? I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think people shouldn't play around with it. I think a lot of young people, I remember that one of those years I was at Coachella, the guy who was in the tent next to us did more drugs in one morning than I will do in my lifetime. I mean, everything you can think of back to back. And I was like, speaking to him, like, it was like a state of excess. Like, what are you trying to achieve here? Now, maybe I'm too intentional where I'm like, no, you should only do something with attention.
Quite the contrary. If you went to the hardcore believers in psychedelics,
right,
they'll be more bothered by those who are frivolous with them than the average person would be. They'll see it as
there's reverence.
Yeah, there's reverence. That's where the ceremony and ritual around certain practices come about. It's not something just to mess with.
And I believe some people can have amazing experiences through it. Look at Rabbi Akiva in that story. Yeah. You can have.
I see it like sex.
Okay.
Exactly like sex, where
in the right container, in the right situation.
At its highest level, it can be beautiful.
Yeah.
And connecting, but it's also something that can become the most depraved.
Ramifications.
Yes.
And it can birth something that is not what you intended. So like I don't want to.
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's the intentionality. I think it's the container, the people you're around, and what you're trying to do. I think that it's also like there's intense levels. I think ayahuasca, from what I know, is like a more advanced psychedelic. Let's say someone smoking weed, for example, would be like a first step. Some people do nothing and they go straight to, and maybe that's everyone has their journey. All I would say is that everyone will agree that you have to have a practice in your daily life, which is what I focus my life on, is helping people reach transcendent states in a grounded way they can access at all times. And it's not to say that someone might benefit or from so I leave it. What I'm trying to say is it's a nuanced. Some people make psychedelics and ayahuasca into this like cure-all and like you cannot fail. And I've met people that have had bad experiences and I've met people that had great experiences. So I think just nuance. We have to have a nuanced conversation and also the other way. Oh, it's the devil. It's the worst thing. Well, someone who's been smoking cigarettes for 40 years and he does ayahuasca and like it's like a refresher where he's like, you know what? I'm going a different way. Like that happens. That's just a simple one example.
Yeah, I'll give you more than one.
You can give me plenty. Yeah. So I'm not.
I wouldn't actually use cigarettes as an example, but yeah.
Any kind of thing that maybe normal therapy or normal discussion on the couch wasn't breaking through for that person.
I've seen people who are suicidal to experiences and something opens up. And
anxiety and fear of death. When people do psychedelics, they realize like actually it's not.
Psychedelics I'm an anxiety disorder. I don't live with anxiety anymore.
Wow.
So a disorder diagnosed as a disorder.
Wow.
Everything. I don't live with it anymore.
It's very powerful.
And there was no shortage of work, meaning I was in the therapy in 12 steps for 10 plus years before entering the realm of psychedelics. And that's why I do hold it with certain reverence.
Sure.
And for myself, I'll never do it unplanned. Meaning I'm not, tonight, let's, let's do some mushrooms. Or no.
Right.
I'm scheduling it in advance. That's one of my rules. So it's
the government schedules it too. Schedule A, Schedule B.
So, right. Some things, it's becoming more and more open, and more, especially in California, more and more places are open. You have obviously a lot of it, religious ceremonies, or a lot of different contexts for these, and more. It's becoming more and more open. Weed is today virtually accessible throughout the country. Yeah,
I had a friend. He said, weed has lost its mysteries. Like when we were younger, we'd have to like find a dealer, and we'd have to like, it was like a whole mission. And then like we got it, and it was a whole thing. It's like now it's like lost its appeal. You know, it's like lost that like magic.
Right. Anyone could.
I think same thing with this topic is like you said. I think reverence, intentionality, and yeah, and like I don't want to do the scare tactics, but I do have some that have. It was a pretty crazy experience for them, and maybe it was just how their brain reacts to it. I think everyone reacts to things differently. I know I'm a very sensitive person to like, even when I growing up in California, weed was like water, and I started 8th grade, 9th grade, and for me, I'm like sensitive even to that. Like it's a powerful experience. It's a very
no. I think most people should expect to not even the good trips or bad trips. I don't have that association anymore with them. I think that some of the quote unquote bad ones have more to teach us than some of the good ones.
Interesting.
But what I have found with myself and others, and I'm talking about people who've been in this space for many, many years. Yeah. They'll talk of certainly a period where bringing it back down to earth is difficult. Meaning I'm not one of those who think we should spike everyone's drink. Right. Like, let's spike everyone's drink with LSD.
I had that idea for Israel-Palestinian issues, though. Like in Hamas and like militant areas, just give them like some maybe it would just be a refresher. Maybe the Jews aren't as bad. No, but so you're saying it's a case-by-case situation.
No, not only case-by-case is when people are going in, like understand that a lot of your worldview could be upended very quickly, and then figuring out how to
you need follow-up, and you need a container.
Integration, and I think it's more than that. I think one of the things that we don't have here yet, but it's coming more and more, is a community around it. So they have, take the 12 steps, for example. I keep going back there. So the 12 steps could be done one-on-one with the sponsor. They can be read in a book, and certain things you can work on it with your therapist. For the most part, the 12 steps are a set of ideas and practices. That's what they are. That outside of maybe one step where it says, do this with someone else, step 5, admit it to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. In theory, you can do all those 12 steps itself. Right. But when we think of 12 steps, what do you think of meetings? Right. What are meetings? Meetings are forums to integrate the steps into our lives. What's the idea? Is that you have someone, I'm living on the planet for 30 years in a certain way. And also I'm introduced to radically different concepts about life, about the world, about ways of living. As an example, one where 12 steps will talk about focus on inputs, not outputs. Right? Focus on your hishtadlus, quote unquote. What's your effort? And don't worry about how many people show up to the event, for example. Right? So for the average person, it could be uncomfortable, focusing too much on outcomes and measuring ourselves by outcomes. But for an addict, this can be the difference between life and death. Okay. That's a radically different way of living, right? Everyone around me is living with measuring ourselves by results. And now I'm going to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at the end of the day and say, did I give it my all? If I didn't, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to say I can improve tomorrow. If I did, then regardless of the outcome, I'm going to say that was okay. That was a good move. How am I going to integrate that unless I have people who are doing the same thing and now they can support me in that way? I'll just be a crazy man. So we have meetings regularly. Some go daily, some go... And here we have practices to integrate the steps into our life. Yeah. And more than practices, it's meetings and people and community to integrate it. And that's what I think is often missing from psychedelics. And it's so jarring. And then, okay, so how are you integrating this? And then some go running off. I like what you said about nichnas v'shalom v'yotzer v'shalom. It's sense that I'm coming back. I'm coming back to here. And oftentimes when people ask me about it, I say, like, if someone asks me my opinion on it, I'll want to know that they have, unless it's a critical situation, like the difference between someone with suicidal ideation or something major going on, is is the person at the point in their life where they have stability here, a family, a job, and some of those, not only a support group, just stability in their life. Because otherwise, some of those transcendent experience could be very disruptive. We're saying, okay, how do I bring it down here practically? I had this radically new reality that I was just introduced to, but now I got to come back home. I got to pay a mortgage. I got to show up in the morning for a job. Maybe not necessarily the next day, but I got to show up at some point for a job and for my kids. And those things are very good for bringing the experience back. And I'm thinking if I experienced this 10 years ago, it would not have been good for me. I think that there is a certain amount of stability. Not stability, there's almost responsibility in my life that I can't run away from. So it brings me back to earth. It grounds some of these experiences. And I think community can help with that.
No, thanks for sharing that point, because I've had a friend say, when it's the right time, meaning it's a growth that you go through that you feel you're stable enough to maybe have that. Don't rush it. Some people want to rush an experience. Like, make sure you feel that you're at the right place for it. The idea of having a group around you, I never understood. The Baal Shem Tov says when you have lofty spiritual experiences, make sure you have a chavrusa, make sure you have somebody next to you. And I'm like, that's jarring. I want to be alone to have he says, no, you have to have someone with you. And when Shmuel, King Saul, he tells King Shaul, you're going to meet prophets. And it says they were prophesying along the way. They were walking on the road and they were having this and it says they took off their clothes, a whole wild scene there where they were, and some say it's symbolic that they took off their outer garments of their personality and reached a higher state. But it seems like a group. I have a friend, Jesse, who does mass meditations. We're talking like he did one with Oprah for 15,000 people. Wow. And imagine that. I asked him, what did it feel like doing one for like 30 people, 5 people, and then 15,000? And, at our events, we try to have experiences together. It's personal, but it's in a group. And, it's an interesting concept of also in the come down or in we always discuss afterwards, like, what was it like for you? So I think you're right. It helps you gauge kind of we need each other to gauge reality. Like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, we have Lag Bomer coming up. It says he was in a cave for 12 years with his son, learning the most deepest mystical secrets. And when they came out, they couldn't relate to people. And they had to go back for another year and then integrate it. They could not, his son saw somebody farming. He's like, you're wasting your life. That's how I felt when I left yeshiva. When I was in yeshiva, when I left party college and went to Israel.
It's like he burned him with his eyes, or he burned him alive with his eyes.
Let's say he burnt him alive with his eyes, whatever that means. Right. That's how it feels. When you're a Baal Shem, and you're totally focused on reality, and then you see people I bought a new Ferrari. I'm like, you're all going to die soon. Like, what are you doing? And then you get into this intense state. Right. And it's just to come back down, recognize everyone and they have something to offer too. Their reality is something that can teach you, because beautiful ideas and spirituality in theory, until it's applied, I think is missing something. So I respect a lot of people who have experienced light. I can talk all I want about reaching levels, but could I do that if I had crying babies in the middle of the night and waking up and praying with kavanah? I don't know if I could. So it's nice in theory. Having said that, the Arizal spent 7 years by the River Nile meditating on his own. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai spent 12 years on his own. And Moshe Rabbeinu and the forefathers were shepherds alone with their sheep in nature. There's a power to taking time quietly and powerfully on your own journey and then bringing it back to the group. But for better or worse, Moshe, the Arizal, they couldn't relate so much to others, but they had to. They had to go on that journey on their own in order to reach the highest possible levels. So I tend that direction. I tend to go I've been alone on my own journey for many, many years, and now trying to bring it,
Right. I don't necessarily know that it's okay. I hear that.
That's a more the path of the mystic, but
there's a different. You're talking about certain names, right, that are going for that thing, the everyday man.
But even the spiritual, your own journey, in a way, it's alone. You're a bit alone in it.
Yeah, there is a lot of it that's alone. And even within it, it's like, yes, I'm going to this meeting, but, and I'm with a group of people who are helping me with these 12 steps, but they're not the same people I see in shul, and they're not the same people I'm learning with, and they're not the same people in the, And
when you said earlier about finding other people doing it, the reason shul might be isolating, you don't have other people going through that experience. It's really nice to meet a couple friends. You only need 1 or 2, but meeting others that are on the same kind of journey in a way. It's very validating and it feels great to meet. So it's important. What you're saying is to find fellow people that are experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yeah. I think seeing people who have figured out how to practically apply some of these spiritual or transcendent ideas, and like you're saying, seeing the guy driving the car and saying, oh, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. And that's what it can feel like. But then you see someone else who's actually with you on the same wavelength in terms of this idea you just had, but now you're seeing them do something with it practically. Like I met someone who's, in Costa Rica, deep in the medicine community, and someone introduced him to me. And, he had seen a little bit of my podcast and understood that I'm in business. And he said, I was very skeptical before I met you. Like he's an American, but he just turned into, it
has to be one way.
No, in nature, living in Costa Rica, and a complete detachment from the material world. And at first he was skeptical of how are you talking about these ideas and concepts, and you still have a job in the Western world, and you still have a mortgage to pay, and you're still part of society. And I think for him, it was new to his community. Wasn't that he didn't have a community when he started psychedelics 10 or 15 years ago, whatever it was, when he got introduced, all he saw was the medicine man and the medicine woman deep in the, in nature. And he said, okay, I need to live in a hut and have my basic needs met. But not everyone. There's a way to bring it back.
I think what you're touching on is kind of a full circle of this whole conversation, is like the secret of life is that Tiferet, the middle path according to Kabbalah, is the path of harmony. If you're one extreme, if you're soul without body, if you're just in Tzfat or Nepal and you're not in New York City or Miami, or you're just on South Beach and you're not elevating yourself spiritually, it's called Tiferet. The middle path is called beauty. If you have one color, it's not a beautiful painting. The meshing, the harmony, the trying to infuse our daily living experience with a higher intention and purpose, that like dichotomy and that push and pull and the ability to harmonize it together, and seeing somebody who's taken their personal journey experience loftily and then bring it down and teach it on a very basic level, or that to me is like like human beings are a beautiful thing. Like that, it's so crazy. We're these like energetic, angelic beings that are in this like most animalistic body and desires, and we're trying to like make sense of it, and we feel like we're pulled in many directions because we're like but it's beautiful, the human spirit, to try to find a way to harmonize it all together and to take moments to feel a little higher, and at the same time take care of a child that needs it, and that's the hero's journey, really.
Beautiful. I love the way you tied that all together. I'm not going to try to add anything more than that. So thank you so much, Rabbi Daniel. It's been a pleasure to chat, and I'm grateful that my audience has been introduced to you.
Nice to meet a new friend and to go along this path together. And thank you for having me on.